I, as much as anybody, am thrilled and surprised to see what has happened on Falcor's journey and the journey of the Schmidt Ocean Institute in its first year. It's truly a testament not just to the vision that we have that I'll talk about a little bit, but also to the entrepreneurial spirit that you'll find on the ship and with the Institute of our staff, and the staff of the Institute. It's truly unusual and remarkable. And I want to just, if you haven't seen Falcor, I know you'll have a tour, those of you who haven't seen the ship. She's not just remarkable because of the machinery that we've put on her, but the spirit that guides her and the integration of the crew and the staff and all of the scientists who come on board. We're truly creating a new kind of fraternity. So before I really get started, I want to make one observation that's kind of obvious, I guess, and that is that we're in this very large oceanfront hotel, and we're probably in the only space in it that has a view of absolutely nothing. So pay attention. I also want to say that outside, where we can't see the girls in bikinis, and we can't see their suntan lotion, and the guys on the surfboards, those people are our problem because they're the people who really don't know what's going on in this room, and if they knew, they probably wouldn't see how it related to them at all. So that's one of our challenges, I think, when we talk about communicating science. But we're here really together to spend a few days to look at the horizons of ocean research and how, using the tools of technology and communications, we can accelerate the pace of that research and enable the faster and broader communication of the information to a caring public. And I think we're also gathered here at a very critical time, as you know, in the life of the oceans and of the planet in general. Sylvia Earle recently remarked that what we do to the oceans in the next 10 years will determine the state of the oceans for the next 10,000 years. And that's kind of a heavy burden when you think about the considerable human footprint that we're leaving on the ocean, in the ocean, and under the ocean. Pollution, of course, is coming from the land in all kinds of forms, from industrial runoff and agricultural runoff, petrochemicals from our road systems, transportation, plastics of all kinds. And despite a visible and growing commercial recognition about recycling, 80% of the plastics that are used in America do not end up recycled, but end up in landfills and, of course, in the oceans. Plastic is filling the oceans in all of the gyres, especially dangerous in the tiny particles of plastic that act as sponges for the waterborne contaminants that include DDT, PCBs, hydrocarbons that wash through our watersheds. These pollutants are being absorbed in very high concentrations, which makes the plastic floating in the oceans anything but benign when you consider it as a food source for fish that mistake it for food. There are also thousands of aging oil tankers crisscrossing the seas, tens of thousands of drilling platforms that can leak or explode the way we had at the Deepwater Horizon well in April 2010 in the Gulf of Mexico. And we know from apart from its immediate impact, oil spills also impact marine organisms genetically for generations. So amid all of these assaults on the lungs of the planet, we do get 70% of our oxygen from the oceans. What's the good news? Has anybody heard any good news recently about the oceans? No? Well, I don't have any for you either, but I can tell you there is one thing that I thought of that is a ray of hope. And that is the other side of human nature that's apart from our sort of short-sighted and immature relationship with the natural resources of the planet. It's our curiosity. If curiosity killed the cat, curiosity may be the very thing that saves us, that saves the oceans, and saves the planet. Here's why. We're hardwired to ask questions. We simply are, to seek answers. That's how we've survived as a species. The entire technical world that we live in today would not exist. It's been transformed in the past 30 years, not just because of the microprocessor revolution, but because we can count on people to ask questions. There wouldn't be any search engines or social media or Twitter or Skyping if people weren't curious and just didn't ask a lot of questions and want the answers. In places like North Korea, where my husband traveled earlier this year, people risk their lives to smuggle telephones, to read magazines, because they want information, they want to understand things. So today, with the rapidly evolving communications and networking technologies that we have, we've also got an unprecedented ability to share the questions, share the answers, and to move forward to a more complete understanding of the systems that operate our planet. Look at the revolution that's happened in the world of genomics since the human genome was decoded. Soon, conventional drugstore medicines that you have will actually be patient-specific medications that you'll very likely print at home. That's where that's going. So we welcome you all here to this symposium with the optimism of our vision for the platform that SOI and Falkor can provide for the ocean research community. Our reason for constructing Falkor and designing her systems and operations in the flexible and responsive way that we have is that we believe that our movement to explore and discover and communicate about the oceans can be done on a much larger scale than we see today. And Eric and I understand this personally because we have lived through decades during which massively networked systems have been developed. We've been part of that. So I see two trends I just want to mention today in the world that directly support this goal that we have. First, as I said, there's the capacity of networked systems to communicate complex visual analytical data graphically and in real time. This is a game changer. Did anybody watch the America's Cup on television? Okay, I was there on boats and watching it on shore, and we'd still run and look at the television every chance we got. Because suddenly, a somewhat obscure sport that's usually rendered as white triangles on blue out there somewhere came to life with this fascinating graphical interface that showed the wind direction and the speed, the tidal movements and flows, live camera shots from the boats, from helicopters, and this fantastic overlay that explained racing to people in the audience. This technology applied to explaining a sport created a whole new fan base for the sport of sailboat racing and brought the America's Cup to everyone. The second trend to note, I think, is the explosion of digital media worldwide that creates a market for content that the world has never known before. Have you ever tried to comprehend the sheer number of broadcast stations on your DirecTV? Anybody gone looking for a program to get really quickly, but you couldn't remember what channel it was in the hundreds? Happens to me all the time. But this is just the beginning. These endless interest-specific channels need content, and most of these organizations don't have the budget to create original content. And so the opportunities for high-quality educational materials to reach new audiences are greater than ever before. I'm not just thinking about public television stations, but all of them on cable, and there are hundreds of them running 24 hours a day all over the world. It all needs content. And in a digital, mobile, and internet world that has room for weather puppy forecasts, anybody use that? Right? Or cool cat tricks on YouTube for the terminally bored. There's got to be room for, how about otherworldly creatures from deep ocean methane-soaked hydrothermal vents? Could be a channel for it, yes. Somebody's going to watch that one. So I think the call to all of us whose lives are devoted to advancing the understanding and protection of the oceans is to get a little more creative in the way we think about scientific work, the way we share the data, the way we can help the public to visualize the data and help them feel connected to what is happening in what Bill Broad from the New York Times calls the universe below, what the University of Rhode Island refers to as inner space. The other thing that we need so much now at a time of diminishing federal funding for science research in general, recently cut even further after the sequester, is more private funding, obviously. Individuals and organizations working to collaborate in the pursuit of the most essential knowledge humans have ever needed to survive on the planet. What exactly is our food chain, and how do we protect its vital parts? What can we learn from the long evolution and adaptation of life forms sharing this planet with us? Evidently, as I understand it, humans will be called upon shortly to adapt to a changing climate, changing weather patterns, seas that are warming and rising and becoming more acidic. The Schmidt Ocean Institute hopes to inspire other funders to join us in our quest to explore and understand planetary systems and resources, not to exploit them, that's so last century, but rather to engage with them. Our survival very likely is going to depend upon it. So thank you all for coming. I'm really honored to be in your presence, and I'm looking forward to learning a great deal during the next couple of days. Have a great meeting.